December 27, 2024, Moscow. A power substation goes dark. Ukrainian sources claim responsibility. The method? Drone swarm tactics penetrating one of the world's most defended airspaces. The cost calculation tells a story about modern warfare. Tens of thousands in drones versus hundreds of millions in air defense. And the outcome changes everything we understand about defensive advantage. Frontline Briefing, uncovering modern warfare's hidden battles. According to Ukrainian military intelligence and subsequent reporting, a drone strike reportedly targeted electrical infrastructure in the Moscow region on December 27. Russian sources confirmed a power disruption affecting parts of the city, though official statements attributed it to technical issues. Moscow sits approximately 500 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. If Ukrainian claims are accurate, this represents one of the longest-range drone operations of the conflict, deep strike capability, using relatively low-cost platforms against a city defended by integrated air defense systems. The question isn't whether it happened, it's how. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to break down 3 aspects of this operation that reveal how modern drone warfare has changed strategic calculations. First, the tactical method behind long-range drone strikes, how saturation, decoys, and terrain masking can create windows in even sophisticated air defense. Second, the economic asymmetry that makes these operations strategically viable. Why spending $50,000 to threaten $50 million in infrastructure changes the calculus. And third, the strategic implications when sanctuary becomes myth, what it means when no major city is beyond reach. But first, you need to understand what Ukrainian forces reportedly used and why these specific platforms matter. According to Ukrainian sources and OSINT analysis, the operation reportedly employed long-range mothership drones carrying smaller FPV, first-person view, attack drones. The concept is to launch from Ukrainian territory, fly to the target area while remaining below radar detection, release smaller drones for terminal attack, then return or self-destruct. The reported platform characteristics, based on Ukrainian military statements and published specifications: long-range carrier drones with wingspans of around 10 to 15 feet, constructed primarily from composite materials. Published range estimates: 500 to 800 kilometers, depending on payload and conditions. Payload capacity: 4 to 8 smaller FPV drones. The FPV attack drones, commercially derived quadcopters or fixed-wing platforms modified to carry explosive payloads of 1 to 3 kilograms. Range once released: 10 to 30 kilometers. Navigation, GPS, possible terrain following, and reportedly some autonomous capability. The material composition matters for the radar signature. Composite construction, carbon fiber, fiberglass, and minimal metal components produce significantly smaller radar returns than metal airframes. Ground-based radar systems designed to detect aircraft, these platforms can appear similar to large birds or weather phenomena, especially at low altitude. This doesn't make them invisible, but it does complicate detection and tracking at longer ranges. The reported flight profile: low altitude, approximately 100 to 300 meters, following terrain features when possible. At these altitudes, radar detection range drops dramatically due to Earth's curvature and ground clutter. A platform flying at 200 meters might only be detectable at 20 to 30 kilometers for ground-based systems, depending on radar height and terrain. Moscow's air defense network represents a significant investment and sophistication. According to public statements and OSINT tracking, the city is defended by multiple Pantsir S-1 short-range systems, possibly S-400 batteries on the approaches, Tor-M2 mobile platforms, and electronic warfare capabilities. In theory, this creates layered, overlapping coverage designed to address threats across different ranges and altitudes. The defensive challenge: saturation and resource exhaustion. Modern air defense systems, despite their sophistication, have finite engagement capacity. A Panzer S-1 carries 12 surface-to-air missiles. Reloading requires specialized equipment and time, typically 5 to 10 minutes out of action. When presented with multiple simultaneous targets or apparent targets, the system must prioritize. Each engagement consumes limited missiles. The decoy problem. Reports suggest Ukrainian forces employ low-cost decoys alongside actual attack drones. These can be as simple as modified commercial drones with radar reflectors, creating signatures that appear threatening to air defense radar. The cost calculation: if a decoy costs $50 to $500 and forces the expenditure of a $1 million missile, the exchange ratio heavily favors the attacker. Even if most decoys are successfully intercepted, they drain defensive capacity. The electronic warfare dimension. Ukrainian engineers have reportedly developed jamming-resistant control systems, including autonomous navigation that continues functioning when GPS or radio control is degraded or lost. This creates a situation where Russian electronic warfare, which has proven effective against some Ukrainian systems, faces platforms with backup navigation modes, terrain recognition, inertial navigation, and pre-programmed waypoints. The result? A defensive problem with no perfect solution. Engage everything and exhaust ammunition against possible decoys. Attempt discrimination and risk missing actual threats. The system is being forced into no-win choices. The cost asymmetry defines the strategic viability of these operations. According to estimates based on known component costs and Ukrainian military procurement data, long-range carrier drone, approximately $10,000 to $20,000, composite construction, commercial motors, basic avionics. FPV attack drone, $1,000 to $3,000, commercial base plus modifications plus explosive. Total package with decoys, likely $30,000 to $60,000 per operation. Against this, the defensive expenditure. Each Panzer missile, approximately $1 million. Each Tor missile, approximately $500,000 to $1 million. Electronic warfare system deployment. Operational costs in thousands per hour. If reports of 10 to 15 missiles expended are accurate, $10 to $15 million in direct intercept costs. But the real asymmetry appears in the target value. Electrical substations serving major cities. Replacement costs in the tens to hundreds of millions, depending on transformer specifications and current availability. Repair timelines, weeks to months for specialized high-voltage equipment, particularly under sanctions limiting Western component access. The propaganda value calculation. For Ukraine, demonstrating reach into Russian territory, challenging the Fortress Moscow narrative, and psychological impact on Russian population. Cost to achieve this: tens of thousands in equipment. For Russia, defending the perception of security in the capital, maintaining air defense credibility, and reassuring the population. Cost to maintain this: hundreds of millions in defensive systems, plus operational costs. The sustainability question: can Russia maintain this defensive posture indefinitely at this cost? Can Ukraine sustain operations at this scale? Both sides face constraints, but the exchange ratio currently favors offensive operations. This operation, if Ukrainian claims are accurate, demonstrates several tactical principles that increasingly define the conflict. First, saturation creates windows in any defense. No air defense system can engage unlimited, simultaneous targets. By presenting multiple contacts of real drones, decoys, and coordinated timing, attackers force defenders into resource management decisions under time pressure. The more targets presented, the higher the probability that some penetrate the defensive network. Second, commercial technology enables strategic reach. The platforms reportedly used derive from commercial drone technology modified for military purposes. This creates rapid development cycles and lower costs compared to purpose-built military systems. Ukraine has demonstrated particular innovation in this area, combining commercial components with military payloads and tactical concepts. Third, autonomous capability changes the electronic warfare equation. When drones can continue their mission despite GPS jamming or radio control loss, electronic warfare shifts from a decisive countermeasure to a complicating factor. The technology exists in commercial navigation systems, terrain recognition, visual odometry, and inertial navigation. Military adaptation appears to be occurring rapidly. Fourth, geographic depth provides diminishing security. Historically, 500 kilometers from the front line represented a secure rear area. Modern long-range systems, whether drones, cruise missiles, or other platforms, compress this distance. Fixed installations anywhere within range become potential targets, requiring continuous defense rather than secure deployment. The cumulative effect: Defenders must protect everything continuously. Attackers need only succeed occasionally. This is an asymmetric burden with significant resource implications. The reported Moscow strike, regardless of specific tactical details, represents a pattern with broader strategic significance. First, the erosion of sanctuary. If major cities 500-plus kilometers from front lines can be struck with relative frequency, the concept of secure rear areas changes fundamentally. This affects military logistics, industrial placement, population morale, and political calculations. Infrastructure that seems secure must now be defended continuously or accepted as vulnerable. Second, the defense cost spiral. Defending major cities against drone swarms requires dense air defense coverage, continuous manning, regular ammunition expenditure, and electronic warfare support. The cost of maintaining this posture across multiple cities continuously becomes substantial. Meanwhile, offensive operations remain relatively low cost. This creates economic pressure that compounds over time. Third, the political dimension of infrastructure targeting. Power outages in major cities during winter carry obvious humanitarian and political weight. For Ukraine, demonstrating the capability to strike Russian infrastructure serves both military and political objectives. Retaliation for Russian strikes on Ukrainian power systems, psychological pressure on the Russian population, challenge to government narratives of security. For Russia, preventing these strikes becomes politically essential, requiring resource allocation that might otherwise go elsewhere. Fourth, the technology proliferation question. The methods reportedly used here, long-range drone carriers, swarm tactics, and decoy saturation, are now demonstrated and documented. Other actors, state and non-state, are observing and learning. The barrier to entry for long-range precision strike continues to be lowered.
To lose territory. Podolyaka confirmed that the Ukrainian Defense Forces are actively advancing in Kupiansk from several directions simultaneously.
Much of what is reported about this operation cannot be independently verified. Ukrainian military sources claim responsibility and provide general details. Russian sources acknowledge power disruptions, but attribute them to technical issues. Neither side provides complete information for obvious operational security reasons. What can be confirmed? Power disruptions occurred in Moscow on December 27, documented by residents' media. Ukrainian sources claimed a drone strike, official statements. Moscow is approximately 500 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory, geographic fact. Long-range Ukrainian drones have been documented in previous operations, OSINT evidence. What remains uncertain: specific platforms used, exact flight path and operational details, number of drones employed, precise target identification and damage assessment, defensive response specifics. The dramatic blow-by-blow accounts published in various outlets are reconstructions, not verified reporting. This matters for understanding. We can analyze the tactical methods and strategic implications without claiming certainty about specific operational details. So here's what this operation, or more precisely, the pattern it represents, tells us about modern conflict. Strategic depth is compressing. Long-range, low-cost platforms are making distance less protective than it once was. Air defense, despite billions in investment, cannot guarantee protection against determined, creative attackers willing to accept losses. The economics increasingly favor offense over defense. The cost to attack infrastructure is substantially lower than the cost to defend it continuously. This asymmetry will likely drive tactical and strategic evolution on both sides, and the technology continues to proliferate. This analysis covers the tactical method and strategic implications. But there's a broader question I didn't address here: how other militaries are adapting their air defense doctrine in response to these demonstrated capabilities. That analysis exists, and it's worth your time. There's excellent reporting on air defense evolution. I'll link to the most thorough coverage I've found in the description. The algorithm knows what you're interested in next. Let it work. Thanks for watching Frontline Briefing. If you value this kind of neutral, evidence-based analysis, hit the like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel reach the right audience. And I'm curious, do you think drone warfare has permanently flipped the offense versus defense equation? Or will air defense adapt and restore the balance? Let me know in the comments.